Welcome to the Exploring Unschooling podcast. I'm Pam Laricchia, longtime unschooling mom and author. Join me and my wonderful guests for interviews, information, and inspiration about unschooling and living joyfully with your family. You can find the episode show notes, your free introductory ebook, What is Unschooling, and lots more information at livingjoyfully.ca. And here's the show. Hello, explorers. I'm Pam Laricchia, and this is episode number 155 of the podcast. It's the 18th of December, 2018, as I record this intro. This week on the podcast, I have a wonderful conversation with Missy WIllis. Missy is an unschooling mom and host of the website Let 'em Go Barefoot, where she shares her personal experiences, thoughts, and research around unschooling. In the episode, we dive into her journey from getting her master's in special ed all the way to unschooling, what she means by the phrase ego schooling, how jumping in to help our children may actually get in their way, her favorite things about their unschooling days right now, and lots more. As a personal update, I just finished recording 5 podcast calls in 4 days, and I'm on an unschooling high. I'm so excited to share these conversations with you over the next few weeks. And Lissy's coming home for the holidays in 4 days, so that's keeping me focused now on the things I'd love to have wrapped up so we can all sink into some family fun together. Just a heads up, next week I've put together another compilation episode for you with 12 different guests sharing their answers to the question, what has surprised you most so far about how unschooling has unfolded in your lives? I hope you enjoy it. And as always, I want to thank everyone who has chosen to support my unschooling work like this podcast and my website through Patreon. I deeply appreciate all my patrons. Their generous support is vital to helping me freely share information and inspiration with anyone who's curious and wants to explore the fascinating world of unschooling. If you'd like to join my community of patrons and scoop up some great rewards along the way, check out the Exploring Unschooling page at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/exploring unschooling. And with that, let's get to my conversation with Missy. Welcome. I'm Pam Laricchia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Missy WIllis. Hi, Missy.
Hello, Pam.
Hello. Missy is an unschooling mom and host of the website Let 'em Go Barefoot, where she shares her personal experiences, thoughts, and research around unschooling. I've really enjoyed reading around her blog, and I'm excited to dive into her experience. So to get us started, Missy, can you share with us a bit about you and your family?
Sure. So I am mom to 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old, a boy and a girl. My husband and I have been married for a very long time. I think it's 21 years. We've been together since high school, actually.
Wow.
And then we live in Charlotte and have for, I grew up here and then I left for a while to go to college in Raleigh. And then we moved back in 2001 and we have not left.
You like the area?
We do. We do enjoy it here. I never thought I would actually settle down back in Charlotte. I'm not really sure why. I think part of me after I left and went off to college was that I would start my life in another, location away from family and do my own thing. But family drew me back and the area has grown so much and it's really homeschool friendly. And we have so many great friends and family here. So we stayed put. And now my kids are so adjusted to it that they would never even entertain the idea of leaving.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's nice that you've got a good homeschooling community too. So how did you discover unschooling then? Like, was this something, homeschooling and unschooling, was that something you knew about before you had kids? And so what did your family's journey to unschooling look like?
Yeah, I did not know about unschooling. I have a master's in special education. And when we moved back to Charlotte, I was working for a private school for children with learning disabilities. And my goal and role in that position was to help develop their curriculum their K through 12 curriculum. At the time, they were only second grade through eighth grade, and every year they were adding a year. So my role was to sort of help them formalize their curriculum and make it match, or at least make it sort of combine with what our public schools were asking kids to do, not necessarily for them to follow that curriculum, but in order to communicate with families who were coming in from public school and for kids who were leaving the private school to go back. So the teachers would have a very good working knowledge of what was expected in the public school world. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, I did not think I was going to homeschool at all. And then I had my son, and when he was 4, almost 5, he was able to start kindergarten because his birthday was really close to the beginning of the school year. Mm-hmm. And I just had my daughter. She was only 6 months old. And prior to that, I just was, we were just having so much fun as a family, and they were learning just so much all the time. And it was amazing to watch their light bulb moments. And it just became more and more clear based on the way we were raising our children and were interacting as a family that school was just going to completely interfere with our lives and our lifestyle. So I have friends who are homeschooling, and what they were doing looked extremely enticing, and they seemed so happy and relaxed. And I thought, well, I want a part of that. And so we decided, since school didn't start here, compulsory schooling doesn't start until age 7. I said, let's just give it a go. We don't have to make a decision, forever right this moment. We can just roll with it, and we'll just see how things go. So I talked to my kids about it. I actually talked to Daniel, my son, and just said, listen, here are your options. Here's what we could be doing. We could also do this. And he thought about it. And at one point he really thought he wanted to go to school and try it. And then the closer we got to enrollment, he said, nope, I'm good. And so we stayed, that was our first year. And we haven't looked back. So as we got started in homeschooling, though, with my background, it got in the way a little bit, because I thought, well, I helped write a curriculum, and I worked in the classrooms, and I've worked with kids for as long as I can remember. So I have things I need to teach him. And then he taught me a lot. He said, Mom, I'm good. You don't need to tell me when to learn this or when to sit and read, or, it just became more about the relationship and our, the flowing of our day and respecting him as an individual, instead of looking at a list of sort of what he's expected or should be doing by a certain age and allowing that to override our relationship. So friends were homeschooling and unschooling, and that's when the term, came into our world, and it just made perfect sense. And we watched, I've just seen so many beautiful things happen in their learning, in their understanding of who they are as people, their development, their autonomy, and just understanding who they are. And I just feel like if they were sent away every day, we would just not have this great close relationship that we do now. I mean, maybe we would have, but it almost feels like there would have been interference for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that there would have been, interference is a great word. Like, there would have been other things pulling on your time and on your energy, right? So they wouldn't have as much of the time to understand themselves. All those interesting things that you're seeing, right, with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, mm-hmm. They wouldn't have time to dive into that. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that, because like you mentioned, you've got your master's, right, in special ed, and you've worked in those classrooms. So you mentioned, letting go of the curriculum as being difficult. Was that one of the most challenging aspects of deschooling for you, or what did you find?
Yeah, I do think that curriculum piece was difficult, because I had all this stuff in front of me that said, hey, at age 5, you should know these words, and they should understand this concept in math, and what about this science and this social studies. And so there was all this information, that I thought, well, gosh, if, there's all this stuff out there that's saying that the kids should have this, and am I possibly doing my children a disservice by not getting them to this point? And the more that we lived our day-to-day lives, the clearer it became that was just arbitrary. It was somebody made a decision in some city, in some state, to say these things need to be learned. And it's interesting because from state to state, the concepts, and they're not always the same, So you can live in North Carolina and go to public school, and if you transfer to South Carolina, their rules and their sort of their curriculum might look a little different. Now, obviously, Common Core has come online, and that is, I think, the point behind that is to make it so that it is the same across the country. So the curriculum piece was hard, but I realized that it just wasn't worth it. We had a couple of times where I remember being frustrated and thinking, what am I doing wrong here? I have this knowledge, and I feel like my child doesn't even want to hear what I have to say. And that's when it, just became so clear that it was just, he was learning, he was doing fine, he was thriving. He was reading Pokemon cards. He was probably, I would say the real big shift for me happened around 5 or 6. And it was kind of like, I don't remember the exact day. It's just more of a feeling. It was like, he just kind of look on his face. And I remember thinking, wow, I am not being very nice to him right now, when I think that he needs to, do some worksheet that I found or something online. And that's when I just backed off, and I was like, okay, this is not the way that I wanted our lives to be. I mean, we were so calm, and I've been so engaging with them from the beginning. And then now these rules that I've thought we have to push. And so, I stopped, I backed off, and then, he was really interested in Lego building, and some of the stuff he would create was just fascinating, and he'd get online and he would watch a video, and then he would go into his room, and next thing he'd come out with something that he built, that he saw, was inspired. And then he was really into Pokemon cards, and within, a couple of months, he was memorizing full cards with all these really big words. And his concepts of science concepts, math concepts, all of those things were just getting better and better. And we never sat down and was like, okay, this is how you have to read. He just started reading based on his interest. And every once in a while he'd come and say, hey, what does this word mean? Or will you read this card to me? And before you know it, he was reading, So wow. That, it was neat to have been able to witness that and to support it. And I'm just very glad that our relationship was as solid as it was, so that I could see what I was doing wrong. I was like, I just need to back off. And
I think it's so important when we're making that shift, to be paying so much attention, right? To be looking for all the little clues. Like it is, like you said, it was really nothing to do with your son, right? It's not about them. It's about us expanding the way we see things, right? Like expanding from that view of curriculum, but you were paying attention to see the other learning that he was doing. And I can imagine in your mind, you'd see him learning something that you knew was in like the grade 2 curriculum, maybe,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's like, oh, look, he's learning that and it's okay.
And I'm a very checklisty person, I like charts, and I like to visually see things and check things off. So yes, absolutely. If something was going on, I was like, whoa, well, okay. We have to do, for the state of North Carolina, we have to do end of year testing. It's, you pick your own test and do it. And I'm actually able to do the Woodcock-Johnson, which is one of the standardized tests that are given in a lot of private schools. And so, the first year we went through the motions and did them, and I was just like, whatever, I didn't care at all what the test was saying. And then, the next year comes, and the next year, and he's getting more and more confident as a test taker, I should say. And even though we just didn't emphasize that very much at all, when I did finally look at the results, I really impressed upon the kids not to worry about it. Like, it's not important. We just have to do it. It's like kind of a checklist thing we have to do. Mm-hmm. But when I was able to see sort of what they were doing in comparison to what was expected, it was just, again, that sort of obvious, like, they're doing just fine. It's fine. You don't have to be in a classroom 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, 175 days a year in order to be an educated, bright person.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's just, it's kind of mind blowing, isn't it? When you just start seeing how, on one hand, how easy it is, as in they're just living life. They're just doing what they're interested in. And it's even getting rid of that, kind of conventional view that kids that they need to be forced to learn, that learning something that's hard. Mm-hmm. There's just so many messages that we've absorbed growing up that we need to work through, aren't there?
Absolutely. Well, and that they're just some empty vessel that we have to fill with all of our wonderful adult knowledge. And they should be just so grateful that we're able to do that for them.
So many messages are there.
I know. And to think about my youngest, she's, like I said, 11, but when she was 4, so we had some neighbor kids who they played with all the time. And the girl who came over was 10, 11, around 10 at the time. And she'd come over after school and come over here and play school with my daughter. And I always was kind of like, oh boy, here we go. And I just I just watched it unfold. And one day she came upstairs and said, Mom, I don't like playing school with her anymore. And I said, why? And she said, because everybody's always in trouble. I can't talk. And she just went through this list of things. And I thought, oh my goodness. But it struck me because I felt like this child who was coming over was in a way almost decompressing when she came to our house. It was like she was reenacting what was taking place in school, and in a way kind of like trying to control it a little bit by playing with my daughter who was younger and sort of, the one that looked up to her. And I don't know, maybe I was reading too deeply into it, but at the same time, it just kind of struck a nerve and made me wonder. Yeah.
Well, it was like she was able to take on the position of power, because during the day as a student, she had no power, right? So this was a way she could take it over. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that ended up stopping. She didn't want to play school anymore. She said, that's enough of that. So yes, she's the one that, if I'm looking at my firstborn, he's the one that sort of helped open my eyes and just helped me drop all these, expectations I put on myself and on him. And he forged the path for his sister to be completely unschooled, from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And so yes, we have never done anything remotely close to formal instruction unless she's asked for it. Whereas my son had some formal stuff earlier on, and now he, interestingly enough, since around, I think it was 5, 6 that time, we kind of let all that go. He's now signing himself. He has signed himself up for classes at our local Y, and because he wants to take. He is actually taking anatomy and American literature on his own. I was like, okay, great. And before that, he took psychology, which I personally was so excited about because that's my undergraduate degree. And we had a lot of great discussions about all things psychology. And I would say if anybody ever, well, I guess if I broke it down into what sort of curriculum, we don't use curriculum, I don't really like that word, but we just have conversations all the time. And it's amazing the amount of learning that takes place just chatting. And not just for them, but for me, listening to how they see the world and what their interpretation of something is, and having them express sort of their feelings about a scenario that might have played out in their social groups or in our family. And So I just think, just talking to our kids is so vital.
Yeah, that's like the whole processing piece, I think, it really helps them to kind of organize and figure out what they're thinking. And that was one of the things that surprised me so much, but I loved so much, was how much I learned from my kids. Once I was finally in this open and learning mindset, having worked through the idea that I was supposed to already kind of have learned everything. And now I don't have to learn anymore because I graduated.
No.
But holy cow, we learn so much from them, don't they? They just have, and it's with any person, with any child, when they're sharing their perspective, it's not wrong. And it's just so interesting to see how they, as another person, put things together, isn't it?
It so is. Yes. Yep. And it's you see them as a collaborator and as someone who is going to give you information that you otherwise would not have had if you just bulldozed them and told them how to feel or how to handle something. And, that's a part of the process for us in terms of just, mental health even. I think about unschooling as a choice, not just for learning, in the academic sense, but learning as in mental health too, because my kids, I feel like, really know themselves. They understand their bodies. They know when they're tired. They know when they need food. They know when they need exercise, and they can regulate themselves. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, of course, they might push themselves a little too far, but again, that's learning. They know, okay, I stayed up way too late last night. Tomorrow, I'm not going to do that.
And we do that too, right? I mean,
oh, of course, right? All the time.
Yeah.
And then we wonder, why are kids doing that? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I kind of have done that this week.
In the moment, it was a good choice, and there were reasons why we made that choice. And it just even helps us, even if when we look back, we would maybe make a different choice, or if we encounter that situation again, I'm going to remember that and maybe, not do that again. But it reinforces our agency, the fact that it was a choice, right?
Yes, right.
And just knowing that brings even more for us into the next situation where we have a choice, right? I guess free is the word that kind of comes to mind, that we really are free to make these choices. So we want to make them as good as we can for us. That's where that self-awareness piece comes in, right? How wonderful that they're getting to play with all these things so that they understand themselves better by seeing what happens, right?
Absolutely. And so my son, when he was, I want to say maybe around 12 or 13, this is just to me, I just love this because it just speaks volumes to the fact that, all teenagers are not just going to sleep their days away. And you hear that a lot. Well, if you give them all this freedom, aren't they just going to lay in bed all day and never do anything? So he was 12 or 13 and he ended up sleeping in until about 2:00 one day. And when he got up, he realized what time it was and was so mad that he missed the majority of his day. that from that point forward, he set his alarm. And he still, at 16, has his alarm set every single day to get up by a certain time. Now, sometimes he may turn it off and say, no, I'm really not ready to get up yet. But for the most part, he will get up and just get his day going because he did not like that feeling of waking up so late in the day. And, this is a child who's never really had to get up at a certain time. He's like, nope, I didn't like it. And, my 11-year-old now, she's the one that's like, okay, it's 12. Are you getting up today? Her body, she's changing so much and growing, I have a feeling in the next couple of years, she may follow in his footsteps. Who knows?
But that's a wonderful thing, right? It's so individual. It's so unique, each person, and they get to discover that and find what works best for them.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And I think, when we made the choice to homeschool, it was not just about the academic part. It was also a lifestyle choice. And we knew that we didn't want to be stuck to a schedule that really had no flexibility. And it just felt odd to turn over the keys to her freedom to a system that kind of created our schedule for us. And I thought, just from a practical standpoint, it just felt weird, even though I was in that system for so long and participated in it. Once it came time for us to sort of embark on that journey, I just said, no, let's just wait. And, here we are.
Yay. Now, you have a great blog post on your website that's titled, "You Might Be Ego Schooling If."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, that was a new phrase for me, ego schooling, but you described it so well. I loved it. So I was hoping you could explain that.
Well, so, over the years, I've had a lot of opportunity to talk to multiple different families and moms and dads and family members about their kids and their pursuits. And there just seemed to be a common theme with those particular families who just seem to always be pushing their kids. And I, from an outsider perspective, could see some of the dissatisfaction and with the children and sort of the stress, maybe even in their family dynamics. And I've certainly am guilty of making decisions for my kids sometimes because I think, oh, well, that'll be good for them or us or, me, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking about one day and I thought about, our egos and how they can kind of run the show sometimes. And it's like, that's no different in the schooling side. So, I thought about how people tend to push their kids in order to make themselves look better. And my kids are both, well, my son especially was he plays sports and he played baseball for a really long time. And boy, being on the, bleachers at a baseball game, there's a lot of egos flying.
Yeah.
And, parents who are, yelling at their kids and just made me sad. And I was so like, just back off, and you could tell they were almost living their unfulfilled lives through their children. And, so it's, a good, so I'll give you read a couple examples maybe.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So you might be ego schooling if, you force your child to stick with an activity or sport she has expressed unhappiness with because it has already been paid for. So money becomes more important than her feelings. And that one has touched a few nerves because of the money piece. And I get that in terms of budgets. And, if somebody has committed to paying for something and their child is, isn't sticking with it, I can understand sometimes how that can be hard. But if in fact they're just completely unhappy or they realized it's not what they wanted to do, I feel like it's worth talking about and recognizing that, there's going to be some lost money, but then they're going to be preserved as people too.
Yeah. I mean, that's almost like a sunk cost, right? You've already, It's already paid. It's, but now we know more. A few weeks later, we know now that it's not fitting well, and you could be doing, more damage to your relationship, more. And I think of it also, you can be doing more damage to your child's relationship with whatever that, say it was a sport or something, right? Because the more they dislike going or don't like the environment or other people that are there, whatever the issue is, that can be spoiling the bigger picture for them. If it's a soccer team or a baseball team or, whatever, they can get to a point where they dislike the sport entirely and don't even want to, play it for fun or anything like that. It can have such a larger impact than whatever money's left.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can almost think of it, I'm spending the rest of that money buying, their happiness.
Absolutely. Yes. And I look at it as almost like a donation, it's a donation to whatever place was, offering the activity or the sport.
Yeah. Thanks for being there for us to try.
For sure.
And now we're going to step away. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it too.
Yeah. And then another one is free play looks like doing nothing and you prefer to schedule your child's day. I've seen that a lot. people really have a hard time with kids just quote unquote just playing,
Yeah.
Like play is so vital and so important, and they're building skill after skill after skill, playing with their friends and roaming and running and adventuring, because I think we've ventured so far into the area of we need documentation to show and prove that the learning has actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's a super hard one for people to embrace and believe in, because but I don't see anything. I don't see a result of their activity,
of their time.
Yeah. And so to me, free play is high on our list and always has been. And then one other one I'll say is being in the moment is a difficult concept for you to grasp. Instead, you are planning the next activity and worrying about what needs to get done.
Yep, that's a big one too, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're always looking ahead. Like, well, I think that ties into it a bit with the last one you were talking about too. And with our, wanting documentation, wanting proof of things, mm-hmm. and also the whole big story of needing to be productive.
Yes.
In that needing to produce something like quickly, because, mm-hmm. all that free play and everything can definitely be seen as productive time, in that, like you said, they're learning so much, they're gathering so much. There's just so much that's in their head from that, mm-hmm. that at some point will definitely make connections with other things. You know what I mean? And maybe, right. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you that there's so many executive functionings, like a function that's being built. And, you can break it down. You can look at its problem solving, critical thinking, planning, mm-hmm. trial and error. There's just so much good stuff that happens while kids are playing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I do, I want to say, I can't remember the name of the article, but it was something I saw not too long ago about adding play back into the classrooms. And it made me laugh, because I was like, really? We're now, play. We can add play back. Like, this is some great new idea. Yes. More play.
More play, yes. Play-based curriculum.
Right. And I'm like, no, throw that C word out.
Yeah. So just, if anyone's interested, just let you know, there will be links in the show notes, not only to the website, but also to that blog post. And I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper now, because when we talk about ego schooling and working through, our need to control our children because we're defining ourselves through their actions, right? When they're successful, we see ourselves as a successful parent, through their success. So when we manage to work through that layer, there's still more layers to go, aren't there? There's always more layers to everything, right? So, for example, maybe we see our children trying to do something, right? They're trying to accomplish something, and we want to jump in and help them. Mm-hmm. And we really do. We want to help them. We know that they're trying to get this thing done, and we want to help them do it maybe more efficiently or more quickly, or, we have more experience with it, so we can do it faster. But even though it's not about us, we're trying to help them. But even that can get in their way, can't it?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. And that is a big conversation in our house, for letting them just do it on their own timeline. Yeah. And even if it takes 45 minutes, to get from point A to point B, and we could have figured it out in 5, we're completely cheating them of an opportunity to piece together those steps that will then be almost hardwired into their minds. And then the next time it'll be super fast. Yeah. And maybe it won't be the next time, but maybe 3 times down the line. So for sure. Yeah, that's so important, to be okay with messes, be okay with it not being linear, recognizing that sometimes kids will try something and will go away from it. They'll come back to it. And just because they didn't finish it the first time doesn't mean that they failed or that they're not motivated or, that they just don't care. It just could be that they need to take a break from it. And sometimes taking breaks from things, it's almost like in the background, it's still sort of going on.
Yeah.
and they might be mulling it over in a way that they aren't even really aware of, but then they come back to it and they're like, oh yeah, okay, got it now. And so, yeah, I do that personally. If I'm writing and I just feel like I can't get my thoughts together, I got to go for a walk, or I need to go sit outside and sit in the swing for a little bit, or just get some fresh air and try to get my mind off of it. And sure enough, it seems to work like magic. And then all of a sudden the ideas will pop back in my head and I'll go, okay, I'm good. And I just feel like kids are exactly that way too.
I know. And it's sometimes, well, it's surprising when you look back, but, not in the moment, but how adults can, like, that can make total sense for adults. Right. And I do it too. It's amazing. It's like, okay, I'm stuck here. I'm not making any progress. I'm going to go do something else for a while. And, even now I'll say, my subconscious is working on it because I'm not consciously doing it, but I know, eventually when I sit back down or go back to whatever it was, it will flow better. Something will have clicked. But why we don't think that's okay for kids, right? It's again, that whole, like, kids are different than adults. No, we're all human beings. We all work the same kind of way. But it's a big aha moment when you realize that space and that time is so important for kids learning and figuring things out too, just as important as it is for us.
It is. And I was able to recognize that early on, but also give them the opportunity to ask me, I'm here if you need me, just know I'm right around the corner. And they'll ask, hey mom, where's such and such? Or, hey, do you know where I could get this? And, would you mind holding this while I cut it? Those sorts of things. And I'm physically there when they need it. And then I just leave. A lot of times I'll just ask questions, I'll just say, hey, what are you working on? Not because I'm trying to get into their business and tell them how to do it, but because I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Many times they'll just go into these great elaborate explanations, or they'll come to me with more information and say, hey, I found this out, or, and so I want them to understand that I'm there as a willing listener and participant when they're ready to share and when they're ready to ask for help, versus bulldozing them.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes, like you said, it takes it away from them. It becomes about me, but it also, I think, deteriorates their belief in their own abilities.
Yes.
I'm not capable because mom keeps coming in and doing this for me. And she does do it better because she's older and has had more experience. Not that they're saying those things to themselves, but that's the kind of message they internalize just from our actions though, right? If we keep coming in to check, it's like, oh, they must be worried that I'm not going to be able to do this properly, right? Mm-hmm. That's the message that they can easily get from our actions. I know sometimes I used to, like, if I thought the odd time, especially, it's Lego kits and stuff like that, or puzzles, I had the way that worked for me, and I would, be sure I would leave the room and I would do that. Hey, if you guys want any help, just let me know, because I knew I would be too tempted to keep jumping in to do it my way. But it's understanding that our way is our way and it's wonderful for us, but it's not the only way. Yeah. And they also have, taught me ways to do stuff that I might not have thought about. Yeah. And I think when we allow for each person to take the time that they need to do whatever it is that they set their mind to, then we see strengths pop up that we might not have been able to see before. Or we see, hey, my son, he was major Lego builder and still enjoys it every so often. But, he just could look at something and his brain was able to see it in a way that I just couldn't. Mm-hmm. And we would laugh about it. I was like, okay, well, you've got it figured out. I will hand you whatever piece you need and then you put it together. it's just, and my daughter, she's very creative and artsy, and she draws the coolest things. And I love seeing the world through her eyes. And I love to draw too, but I'm such a different artist than she is. And yeah, there's been plenty of times where she'll do something. I'm like, how did you do that? Or where did you come up with that idea? And it's sweet because she just has a little spark in her eyes, like, oh, mom wants to know what and it but I really do want to know because, she just sees it differently than I do. And I love that. And I'm glad that we have that back and forth.
Yeah.
And
I love that phrase you use, seeing things through their eyes. Because that it's a spectacular view. And it's a shift. It's not like it's different from the phrase putting ourselves in their shoes, right? Because when we put ourselves in their shoes, we put ourselves in that situation. So we're still seeing it through our eyes, with all our with our strengths and our weaknesses and the way we prefer to do things. We're still seeing that situation through our eyes. But when we see it through their eyes, we see like a whole new world practically, right? They see things in such interesting ways. And it's so fascinating to have conversations with them and to chat about it and to hear what they're thinking.
It is. So I don't know if you know this, but my daughter was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Oh, I did not know.
And it was a huge, I say in my mind, it's a huge blow to me because it just came out of nowhere. And we were pretty caught off guard and sad about it. And interestingly enough, she kind of knew once we figured something was going on with her health that she knew something big was about to happen. And it was weird. She was just like, I just know, Mom, I just know something's about to happen. And it's just, it's not going to go away. So it was just like she had this intuition. And I was being, the mom of trying to comfort her and say, well, let's not make any decisions about anything yet. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's take it step by step. So when the final diagnosis came down, we were all pretty much like, oh, wow. But I said, you know what? We're not going to look at this as like so devastating and now our lives will never be the same. We're just going to take this and start from where we are and what we know, and we're just going to learn and we're going to build on it. And within the first couple of weeks had already just blown my mind. Her dad was giving her insulin injection, and he said, I'm sorry, you have to go through this. And she said, Dad, it's okay. It's just my new normal, and then she said something like, I don't want people to think I'm sick. My body just works differently now. And those kinds of things. I'm just like, what? Her just her foresight and just so mature and so positive. And, I'm not saying she doesn't have bad days and gets frustrated, but overall, she just says, you know what, this is what we have to do. And we're going to do it together, and it's a team effort. And so I've just appreciated the fact that we live it together in a way that is supportive and there's harmony, and we're able to flex and change directions as needed,
Oh yeah. I think Michael was 9 when, he was 9 when he was diagnosed, and it was out of the blue.
So your son has type 1?
Yeah, my youngest.
I did not know that. Oh my goodness.
Oh, she must know. No, yeah.
No. Wow.
Yes. So
how about that?
And it was the same thing, it was just, we're flowing with this now, right? There's so much, a lot of learning, up front and figuring it out. And it was amazing having the time, right? The freedom to be able to dive in and learn about it and work together to figure things out. And like you said, their attitude was amazing, because it was just, so this is another thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is because it's another thing that keeps you healthy, because, you know, you don't want to be feeling bad and be feeling sick. And so it's another, I love the way she's, you know, described it as her new normal now. And that was very much the same thing. And, you know, good days, bad days, helping each other out. You've already got that connection, that relationship, so you can have the conversations, you know, how are you feeling with this? What do you want to do with this? You know,
right.
It's really amazing. It's just another, I always, you know, cause he can feel in his body now too, when he's going high and low, and he knows, like he was already, really well on the way, because with unschooling, you know, he was already following his body, the way he ate, etc. Like how she could feel something was off.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
It's amazing because they know themselves so well. They know their bodies that well. Well, that's fascinating.
Wow, I had no idea about your son.
Yeah,
that's it's a big turning point. But at the same time, like she said too, she's funny. She's like, Mom, I feel like I'm healthier now than I've ever been, you know. And
well, and then he ended up being the one who's, you know, he's a stunt performer now. I mean, he's so athletic, and you know, it didn't stop him from what he wanted to do. It was just, you know, a thing you do alongside everything else. It wasn't, you know, the end of the world. Oh my gosh, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it was August. So, you know, had she been in school, it would have been a diagnosis within 2 to 3 weeks of her starting school. And I was just like, there's no way. And I'm just thankful that we were already in a position to have the flexibility that we needed to take it day by day and not have any, you know, big expectations placed on us or any schedule to follow. And
the way the doctors were able to, you know, work on his program was because, you know, if he was going to school, it would have to be a completely different thing, right? And then it's very controlled in school, and they don't have access, you know. But this way, he says the doctor said, and now this was 12 years ago, he's like, oh, we can do the same thing with him that we do with adults.
Wow. How about that?
I'm like,
Isn't that telling?
When he wants and have insulin when he eats, and we're all good. You know, it doesn't have to be done by the clock, because with school, when they're in school, a lot of the insulin management had to be done by the clock, and they needed to eat at this time, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that brings up a point about the clock, because that's certainly something I find a problem with a lot of our society in general. You know, the clock is just very powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how many people determine how they're going to live their or live their day, or do how their day is going to unfold based on time. And while it's, of course, you know, important and respectful for people who've put together a plan for something and has a certain window of time to do it, to show up to things and be prompt. But it is interesting to me that so many people follow such a strict schedule without considering how they're actually feeling.
Yeah.
and you know, keep going. Well, we have to be there, and we have to do this, and the time is now. And I think that is probably one big area for me. I know we would have been in so much trouble if we weren't in school, because I would be like, well, we did something last night as a family, and it went longer than we expected, and kids slept in, and oh well, we'll be at school, you know, at 12 today or whatever. And it's just, I don't think they would have liked me very much.
I know those have-tos and the clock, you know, it's amazing how people, you know, just use those in lieu of thinking. You know, yeah. I mean, and not even in a negative way, you know, in that this is what they've known, and then they don't have to think, because we've given thinking a bad name. You know, thinking and learning, those are hard things.
I've been told I think too much, so I took it as a compliment.
There's too much. Right?
I was like, oh well. Even though that's not meant to be a compliment, I'm taking it as one.
Exactly. Now, your website, and I'll have a link in the show notes, let'emgobarefoot.com. I love that name, and I would love to hear the story behind it. How'd you come up with that?
Well, so when Daniel was younger, we spent a lot of time outside. And, as a new mom and somebody who had already been very interested in child development and psychology, I was a big observer of other families and other parents and kids. And, I just started noticing how many parents got mad at their kids for taking their shoes off. And on the playground, in a park, in a sandbox, it was just constant. And that just stuck out to me over and over again. And one day I, just thought, what is the big deal? Just let him go barefoot. And then I was like, oh, I really like that name. So it kind of stuck in my head for a while, and I didn't do anything with it immediately. And then over time, as I was able to, I thought, well, maybe I'll just create a page, a website where I can explore topics that I'm interested in and that I'm passionate about. And so that's how it came together. And it felt to me like the bare feet were symbolic of stripping off that external control. Like, I know my body. I know what I want to do. I just want to take my shoes off. I just want to feel the earth under my feet. And yet I'm being told that that's not right. I'm being told that that's bad for me. And it just felt so much like that, the trust issues that parents have with their children, that my kid doesn't know what he needs. My kid doesn't know what he wants. Bare feet are dangerous. And, interestingly enough, my daughter is rarely has shoes on her feet. And my son was barefoot all the time. I mean, I don't even think we owned a pair of shoes for him until he was like a year and a half old. It just felt like a great representation of the power of trust, and trusting the kids to just do what they felt comfortable doing.
Yeah, it works on so many levels, doesn't it? Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, from the trust, the choice, the understanding yourself, there's just so many aspects that represents. I love the name.
Thank you.
So for our last question, I would love to know what your favorite thing is right now about the flow of your unschooling days.
Oh, wow. So I guess because my kids are older, it has really evolved to be, the mornings are super quiet for me. Mm-hmm. And I like to meditate and do yoga when I can, and drink coffee and think and contemplate life. So it's been nice to be able to get up in the morning and sort of just have those quiet hours to myself. And then when they get up and are ready to go, they each have sort of their own ideas about how they want their day to unfold. Sometimes the night before, we might have a discussion about what's on tap for the day, days ahead. And so, we'll make a plan if necessary for logistics for kids to get to different places. But I just love the fact that we have so much flexibility. And if we make a plan to do something and then, the kids get up and maybe they just aren't feeling it, then we can say, no, thank you. Or we have friends that we're really close to, the very last minute we'll almost always be able to get together with, and that's really neat. So yeah, I think that's probably my favorite part, is just the flexibility of our lifestyle. And seeing them each gravitate towards the activities that sort of really make them shine and feel good about. So my daughter loves horseback, and she, I wish she could have a horse and be on it every day. That's just not possible right now in the city. And my son enjoys soccer, and he is a gamer. And he really is aware of his physical health and enjoys, exercising and things like that. So yeah, it's just been really neat to watch that evolution. of our day to day, and it's the hustle of the earlier years, or it's not there anymore. I do kind of miss it, actually.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's the flow of the days and there's the flow of the years, right?
For sure.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And I think that's a great, it was a really important and fun thing, about a lot of our unschooling years was that flexibility to be able to respond when something hit our curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. And to be able to respect times when we lost that curiosity, when we didn't feel like doing something, And
I was going to add that, or if they have lost an interest in something, to not read too deeply into it, like it's all of a sudden some psychological crisis. It's they're just not interested right now.
Exactly. It's nothing. You have that bigger picture, right? Nothing in the moment is really a big deal. It's like a choice right now. Okay, so we'll see where that takes us. We'll see where that goes. Whether it's moving toward or moving away from something. A choice in the moment is not the be all and end all of anything, right? It's not anything final. It's just another piece of the puzzle. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, Missy. I had such a good time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate it too. Thank you for asking me. I have enjoyed your podcast for so long, so I feel honored to be asked.
Oh, thank you so much. And before we go, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Well, I have a Facebook page by the name of Let 'Em Go Barefoot. I also have Instagram, and then I have a blog by the same name as well. And Instagram has been the newest addition, and it's been so much fun. There are tons of unschooling self-directed families that are on Instagram, so that has been a neat avenue to explore recently.
Oh, I know. I love scrolling through because it's always fun to see little snapshots of what everybody's up to. I love it.
Definitely. It's a good one.
Yeah. I will have links to all those things in the show notes for everybody. And thank you so much, Missy. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes at livingjoyfully.ca/podcast. While you're there, be sure to check out the first book in my Living Joyfully with Unschooling series, Free to Learn 5 Ideas for a Joyful Unschooling Life. In it, I share the 5 paradigm-changing ideas that most help me better understand unschooling. Reviewers have said, a quick read, but packed with ideas that challenge the dominant paradigm of our failing approach to learning, this little gem makes an excellent argument for unschooling. And I was rather doubtful about this book, as I had never heard of the author, but after reading it, I wish that I had read it years ago. I hope you find it helpful too. Free to Learn has also been translated into French and Spanish. Until next time, have fun living and learning with your family.